Hey, good day to you. This is Todd. I'm just a regular dude walking in the Word. We are journeying through the book of Esther, and let's jump right in here. We're starting chapter 2 today in the book of Esther, and I'm entitling it The Lonely King. Okay? If you remember back in chapter 1, we talked about how the king had a banquet, had all these drunk guys. He called Queen Vashti, and she basically said, I'm not standing in front of all you drunk guys. And as a result of that, the king was like, oh no, what do we do? She didn't obey me. And he gets some advice from his pals, his advisors, and they go, oh no, we've got to do something about this because all the other women are going to want to be like her, and it'll be a women's liberation movement, which they sure didn't want. Because remember, back in that day, the women were treated just a little bit higher than slaves, okay? So we're picking it up in chapter 2 today. And so let me start reading here, and we're only going to be reading verses 1 through 4. Later, when King Xerxes' fury had subsided, he remembered Vashti and what she had done and what he had decreed about her. Okay, so this takes place, and it looks like when you read it from chapter 1 to chapter 2, it's like the next day or something. No. This was like several years had passed, okay? What had happened here, if you remember, he was throwing this big banquet and having this festival for 180 days. The reason he was doing that was to gain support. He wanted a bunch of allies to go with him to conquer Europe, and they were going to start with Greece. Well, so they did that. That's what they did. They went over and conquered Greece. However, when he got to Greece, Xerxes had this vast army. He had even all these ships too. Okay, all this stuff he had, great numbers of soldiers. However, when he got over to Greece and specifically dealing with the Spartans were soldiers that was what their life skill was. They trained daily to be soldiers. Okay, they weren't just some farmers that had picked up a sword and were going to come out and fight. These were soldiers that were trained, and there's been books and movies and everything written about the particular events that happened here. But the short story is there was 300 guys, and there was this narrow pass, so all the King Xerxes' men naturally couldn't fit through that pass. And so these 300 Spartan soldiers, and that's why you have the Spartan races today, and everyone wants to be a Spartan because they remember it goes all the way back here to this event when you had those 300 guys that defended Greece, and they defended that pass, and they killed thousands there coming through that pass. Okay, and eventually. Naturally, all 300 of those guys were killed, okay? But they had killed so many of the enemy. And Xerxes ended up, and the sad thing, too, he had all these ships. And a storm came and sank them all, okay? So he lost all the ships, too. And so he came back kind of with his tail between his legs, like, that wasn't such a great thing, okay? So he comes back, and that's when it says, in verse 1, his fury had subsided, and he remembered Vashti and all she had done for him. And then the stupid thing he had said about, sending her far away. Okay. And so that's in between these chapters. So I wanted to fill that in for you. So he's like, oh no, what am I going to do? Verse 2, it says, then the king's personal attendant proposed, let a search be made for beautiful young virgins for the king. Let the king appoint commissioners in every province of the realm to bring all these beautiful young women into the harem at the citadel of Susa. Let them be placed under the care of Haggai, the king's eunuch, who is in charge of the women, and let the beauty treatments be given to them. Then let the young woman who pleases the king be queen instead of Vashti. This advice appealed to the king, and he followed it. Okay? You read between the lines there, it says, then let the young woman who pleases the king. The king was having a different woman every night, okay? And the sad thing about all this was that all these women would be called in, and then he would select one of them to be the queen. Okay, so he'd spend the night with one woman. And he'd like, no, I don't like her. Let's try it again tomorrow night with a different woman, and it'd keep on going until he finally picked a queen. All right. The sad thing though is all those women that went through that process there of the beautification and all that, and then slept with him, and then they were concubines. Okay, so they were property of the king after that. Okay, so they couldn't marry, they couldn't have families of their own. They were always just property of the king forever. Okay, until they died. So it was kind of a sad thing here of what takes place during that time. And it's all because of this lonely king. Okay. So thanks for watching. I'm just a regular dude walking in the Word, and we're going to keep on jumping into this tomorrow, continuing in chapter 2 with the book of Esther. Lord's blessing. I'll see you then.